What if I told you the US dollar quietly controls most of the world's saving, trade, and even financial crisis? Not through war, not through force, but through a system almost nobody understands. And it all started in 1944. In the middle of World War II, economies were collapsing, currencies were unstable, and the global trade had almost stopped. Imagine you are a finance minister at that time. Your country's money is losing values, imports are becoming expensive, and there is no stable system to rely on. So, what do? You come together with other countries to rebuild the system from scratch. And that's exactly what happened when 44 nations met in New Hampshire, United States, at a conference known as Bretton Woods Agreement. The goal was simple: create a stable system so countries could trade again without a constant financial collapse. But behind that goal, there was a quiet power struggle. In one corner was John Maynard Keynes, representing the United Kingdom. He wanted a balanced system where no country dominates, where no single country dominated. In the other corner was Harry Dexter White, representing the United States, and his vision was different. He wanted the US dollar at the center of the global system. Now look at the reality in 1944. The United States held the most of the world's gold. Its economy was strong, while Europe was financially devastated. So, when these two visions collided, the world chose the dollar. But there was one problem. At that time, people didn't trust paper money. So let me ask you, would you trust another country's currency without any guarantee behind it? Probably not. That's why gold became the foundation. The US made a clear promise. It would exchange dollars for gold at fixed rate, $35 for 1 ounce. So, if a country held dollars, it could convert them to real gold. Other countries didn't tie their currencies directly to gold. Instead, they tied them to the US dollars. So, the system looked like a pyramid. At the top, gold, below it is the US dollar, and under that, every other country currency. And that's what gave the dollar its first real power. It became the center of the global finance system. And that's why, even today, when there's a crisis anywhere in the world, the dollar is still at the center of it. But this alone didn't make the dollar dominate the world. What happened next is what spread it everywhere. After the World War II, Europe was destroyed. Factories were gone, infrastructure was damaged, economies were weak. The United States stepped in with something called Marshall Plan. This was a massive economic program where the US gave over $13 billion to the European countries to rebuild their economies. But here's the key detail: that money was given in US dollars. So now think about what happened. Countries started using dollars, trading in dollars, saving in dollars, and slowly the dollars began spreading across the global economy. And once countries started depending on the dollars, it became very difficult to move away from it. By the late 1960s, a problem started to appear. The United States was printing more dollars than it had gold to support. Countries began to worry. They started asking, can we exchange our dollars for gold? That's when Richard Nixon made a historic decision. In 1971, he ended the system that linked the dollar to gold. This movement is known as Nixon Shock. Now, the dollar was no longer backed by gold. It was just paper money. This should have destroyed the dollars, but instead, it made it even stronger. After removing gold, the US needed a new way to create demand for the dollars. So, it made a strategic deal with Saudi Arabia. The deal was simple: oil would be sold only in US dollars. In turn, the US would provide military protection and security. Now, think about this. Oil is one of the most important resources in the world. Every country needs it. So, if every country needs oil and the oil is priced in dollars, then every country needs dollars. And that's how the dollar became global essential. Over time, the US built system around the dollars. Global trade started using it. Banks started settling transactions in it. Countries started storing it as reserves. A key system here is SWIFT. This network connects banks across the world and allows them to send money internationally. Most of this transaction involves US dollars. Today, around 60% of the global reserves are in USD. A large portion of global trade uses USD. Even countries that don't trade with US directly still uses dollars in USD. Now comes the real power. Because the US controls access to the dollar system, it can also restrict it. Through agencies like Office of Foreign Asset Control, the US can block countries from using the global finance system. Think about what that means. If a country cannot use dollars, it struggles to trade, it struggles to import goods, and its economy slows down. And that's why sanctions are so powerful. Today, some countries are trying to reduce the dependency on the dollars. China is promoting its currency, others are exploring digital currencies. But here's the reality: the global system is already built around the dollars. Replacing it would require trust, time, and a complete new system. So, the US dollar doesn't control the world through force, it controls through a system built over decades, through trust, trade, and dependency. And once you are inside that system, it's almost impossible to leave.